active duty service members, veterans, family members, thank you for your service. And thank you for listening to Return to Roots Mil2Vet Resource Podcast, where we document our shared experiences, stories, and transitioning and reintegrating from the military to the community. Hosted by two transitioning service members, myself, Chris Elder, and my partner in crime, Jonathan Hernandez. For more information, go to mentorship.com. If you have little ears, ensure you listen to the content before you allow them to listen. And if you are in crisis and homelessness, suicide ideations, or incarceration, dial 211 Courage to Call for assistance. Now, stand by for the sound of freedom. In today's episode, we have the honor to talk with Navy veteran Marc Sigmon, talk about his transition and reintegration. Enjoy the show.
Return to Roots fam. Today we will be bringing you an insurance expert, but we will not be talking about the insurance. We will be talking about his transition and how Reboot and other programs help him along the way. He is now a SBDC member, San Diego Veterans Coalition member. He is also an MYTT 365 mentor, so you can reach out to him. His name is Marc Sigmon. Without further ado, welcome to the show. Marc, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What is your story?
What is my story? I'm a 20-year retired Navy veteran who stayed here in San Diego and became an insurance agent, helping out the veteran community as they transition out, building up my own business here in the unincorporated area of San Diego County known as Fallbrook. I've been here since 2008 when I was active duty, and then now since 2015 when I retired, I'm just here working in the business community, the individual community, and definitely supporting our veterans.
What was your rate in the Navy?
I started out as a data systems tech, and they got rid of us in 1998, and so I finished up my career as an ET.
So, data systems tech, man. How was it going from that to ET?
Because, well, actually, it was really ironic. The data systems head detailer in Millington, the Aegis platform went into their office and they said, hey, could you come back? And so they actually went over to the FC. So that's how we became the FC Aegis, right? So then the DS were going to get phased out. So they couldn't really get rid of the FCs. They couldn't get rid of the ETs. And so they split the rate. If you were on the fire control side, you went to FC. If you were on the communications data or a little bit of the side, we became ET. So it was just basically by NEC, they made that split. A few of us had choices, but yeah, we became. I always joked around that they neutered me because they took away my arrows and made me with a little atom on a rating badge. But yeah,
Funny, man. That's funny. So how long ago was it that you transitioned out?
2015. And I really had a great command. I found out in 2013 I wasn't going to get promoted, make chief. So I had the last 2 years from 18 on shore duty, and they were really supportive of me searching out, attending job fairs. I finished up my bachelor's degree while I was still on active duty, so they allowed me the flexibility on shore duty to take night classes, and they were really, really supportive. I couldn't thank them enough.
And you got lucky, man. You got real lucky with that one.
Yeah, really, I really did. I mean, And that's really the thing, is that, you know, I don't care who you talk to, whether it's somebody getting ready to leave a command and transition out, or go to another command, or, you have a family emergency or anything else. The command always tries to get every ounce of you, while you're there serving for them, and they don't see that there's somebody coming in behind you. We're all replaceable. I mean, it's great to have those attributes when you get your fit reps, you get your evals. But when it really came down to it, the command that I was at really understood that they had a few of us that were toward the end of our career. There was actually a shipmate that I had. He and I joined on the same day, and then we actually retired from the same command. So he went. It was weird because we were right there at whatever processing date. He went a week ahead of me, and then I was pushed into the group that graduated a week behind him. So back then, and then we found out that we joined up at the same day, talking to each other. He was an AC, and I was, joining in that combat systems field.
So how did you go from that to the insurance side of things?
And that's really my story. And when I get this part of my story out, this is what I love to talk about, because it's so relatable to a lot of different people. When we were in the service, we always were told about those horror stories about our SGLI, the group life insurance that we have while we're on active duty. And you don't update your beneficiaries. So if you want to make sure that that money goes to where you intend to, you need to take the time to update that. My stepdad passed away while I was on active duty, and my mom didn't get a dime. And when I tell people that in the insurance agency, they're like, in the insurance industry, excuse me, they understand, like, how does that happen? Well, it's a second marriage. So the challenge in our industry now is not only to get people to sit down and talk to us the first time, but to maintain those relationships so that when we have divorces, marriages, kids, change of location, change of jobs, all of that comes into somebody's life, those are significant events. And you don't necessarily need to change, but you need to make sure that they were updated. Because I ask people all the time, do you have life insurance? Yeah, I have it through work, or I've had a policy forever. When's the last time you sat down and talked to somebody? So that aspect of servicing clients beyond just selling them life insurance or enrolling them in life insurance, however we want to do it. And then coincidentally, when I was finishing up at my DeVry University there in San Diego, I went to a job fair, and there was an insurance company there that was talking about the senior market, Medicare, long-term care, life insurance, and annuities for retirement. And my mom was turning 65 at that time, so she needed help with her Medicare, so she became my first client. So it was between those two that everybody says, oh, we all have moms and we want to take care of. And it was just it was a no-lose situation for me. I studied, got my license while I was still finishing up active duty, and took all of the 52 hours worth of courses that we had to do, and had my license by the time I retired, rolled right into working in the Medicare field and started there. And then I moved over to New York Life after a year, completed my internship, if you will. And I realized that I was more of an independent person. And then in 2019, at the end, I had a really good friend of mine he was a single person, 50 years old, working as a general manager at a downtown hotel, healthy as anything, but didn't have any dependents. He had a twin brother in Canada, and I convinced him to take a life insurance appointment. So the process usually is that I meet with somebody, talk to them about what they really want and some of their needs, ask them a lot of questions, and I come back the second time and give them some of their options. At this time, I was right in that middle of that first transition from the first company to New York Life. And I said, hey, why don't we hold off? I think the products over in my second company are going to be better than the first one, or my first company. He said, I'm in your hands. I'm not in a rush. I called him to make that second appointment again. And he said, I got diagnosed with stage 4 kidney cancer. He's completely uninsurable. Now there's some guaranteed issues, things, and we could you could kind of talk about that for the people that can't go through regular underwriting. There's some options there, but it taught me that, and I carried a lot of guilt around, because I said, well, if I would have written the first policy, but now that I've been in the industry for a little while, I really think that it probably wouldn't have gone well. I think maybe it would have detected that something was wrong with him, and he might have been diagnosed a little earlier. But fast forward to 2019, and I get a phone call, and they said, hey, his health insurance ran out from Cobra. So after somebody loses their job for whatever reason, they terminate, they get fired, whatever, they have the option to get Cobra coverage. And so it's only for a certain amount of time. And so when he lost that coverage, I scrambled around and got him temporary coverage, and then got him on Covered California to continue his treatments at UCSD. And lo and behold, 3 months later, when the pandemic hit, everybody who was losing their job and lost all of their benefits and now needed this mandated coverage in California, it prepared me for that. I had no idea at the time.
That's thanks for sharing that, man. That's a hard lesson to share, and then to see how it actually kind of turned around to prepare you to help out other people. It sounds like it's hard to say, man. But it sounds like it really ended up benefiting some other people. So yeah, it sucks that you probably hold that, man, like I could have helped this guy out, but now you've helped out a lot more people because of that. And it's like that with a lot of things. It's like even in the Navy, there's been things that I've done that maybe have affected somebody's career. I got a phone call from CMC one day, saying that, hey, how come you didn't fill out this sailor's paperwork? And they're trying to go officer. Now they can't go officer because you have to fill out their physical paperwork, and you bear some of this. And so I get it, man. And I never, at that point, I was like, man, my job really does affect some people, even though it doesn't seem that serious. So man, that's a hard lesson to learn, but it sounds like it really did help out people. So
I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's really I say it all the time, to invite me over on your side of the table, and don't put me in the salesperson role, but let's look at it together as a teammate and be an advisor to help them out and go over those options and make sense of it. Because a lot of the times, and it doesn't necessarily just pertain to the military, but where do we go to get advice? I mean, the people who we work with, the people that we know, hey, what are you doing? What's working for you? And that may not necessarily be the best resource, but it's really hard to understand and try to vet people to know who you can and cannot trust. And I think that's really the key. And if you wrap this all around, when I first transitioned out, I went to the Reboot class. I took the 3-week course for Reboot. I'm a Reboot graduate, as we were talking about there when we were all at the one-day symposium on the Midway. When he's going through all of those slides and he's going through that program, I can relate, because it took me it was a 3-week program back then. And I think he's still doing those for some people. But case in point, it was 2015. And it was just within the last 2 years, and really the last 6 months, that I've been invited to be part of that coalition. So it took me, what, 6-7 years to gain people's trust and see that I'm gonna be around. I'm gonna be here. My passion is still there. I'm still the same type of person to help people out. And it's not always that instant gratification, but we have to continue to develop the relationships. And I mean, I got away from the reboot, the transitioning courses and things, and I kind of worked around, and then through people that I was introduced to, they brought me back. So we were familiar, but then when people have seen the body of work and the signature there, that it really meant a lot when somebody said, now I want you to be part of my team. So it's not easy to be able to be put in a position like that, and to be a trusted advisor, but that's what people understand. Or I mean, I don't really say what they understand. That's people what they hope to receive when they sit down with somebody like me and help them out. So it doesn't really matter if it's helping them with the transition portion, working with onward ops and ETS sponsorship, or if it's working with them on a client basis, or if it's just helping them and coming across in any other atmosphere and say, hey, you're a veteran. What are your concerns? How can I help? Maybe I can introduce you to somebody, the resources that we've had and that I've been exposed to. And then, then maybe I bring it up to you and Chris and say, is there an opportunity, or here's something that I have, and I know that you were talking about this the other day. Can I introduce them to you? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a win-win. Like I'm going to get something out of it and they're going to get something out of it. It means that collectively, if we benefit all of the veterans, and no matter what they're looking for, to introduce them to the people that I've come across. So I hope that really, tells people, because we've all been there. I think the most frustrating part about it when we're thinking about the transition piece with veterans is that when we were in, we had our personnel department, we had our medical department, we had we had cooks that fed us. We had, we went to a shop and we got all of our clothes. We had people that helped us. And when that all goes away and you walk out with that DD-214, and now it's shouldered on your blame, and then we'll call this person. And when we realize that those folks are government workers or county workers or something, contractors, that they're there to do a job. And if it falls outside of the area of their job, then you're calling the wrong person. And when we were in, we knew how to connect them. But if you're feeling all of those calls in a call center, you're not necessarily going to make those connections. So you have to call back. And it may take 2 or 3 calls before you get the right answer. So it does become frustrating. And it does become. So I think it's so amazing that we have started, especially here in San Diego, to bring all of the resources together on one platform, so that no matter what the service member and their family need, the paths have already been laid out, and it may or may not involve the VA. It may or may not involve the GI Bill. There might be some other avenues and some other resources available to them. And that's what's so amazing to be a part of, because we all hear it. I wish I had it when I was transitioning, but it was because people who went in and you were drinking from the fire hose and you kind of forged your path. And I got this far, and the person next to me might have got a little farther, and may not as far as I did. But through those lessons, we figured out what's the easiest path for all of our transitioning people now, and it's continually to evolve.
For all our listeners that are new to the show, Mark is talking about Reboot, Return to Roots, the ETS, SVDC. So SVDC means San Diego Veterans Coalition. Reboot is Reverse Boot Camp, which is a 1-day class and also a 3-week class that teaches you how to reframe your mindset from being in the military to stepping out of that, becoming your own self, figuring out really what you want to do in your life, and then from there, setting up a path, and then from there, going forward and connecting with everyone to allow you to be successful there and reintegrate into the community. San Diego Veterans Coalition now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're at 160, 170 members, give or
Right.
take. And that is the here in San Diego, there's approximately 700 nonprofit organizations that are plus or minus, it changes all the time, but that are here to help the veteran community.
Right.
Unless you become or know anything or start this transition early enough, you have no idea that any of those exist, right? And then the San Diego Veterans Coalition, their whole purpose in life is to say, hey, I am here. I am transitioning. Airman Timmy, I am transitioning. Can you please help me to figure out my life? This is what I got. And the San Diego Veterans Coalition says, you know what? We have organization A, B, and C that will allow you to chart your path so that you're successful, right? And then you also use the ETS, which you're going to have to help me with that acronym.
Yeah, well, it's just recently changed to Onward Ops, because in the Army, the ETS was like our EAOS in the Navy, or your end of your end of I forgot what
Obligated service.
Yeah, in the obligated service. So that's where they just recently made that change. And going back, you asked the question about when I transitioned out and what happened, and I literally can trace it back to all of these key people that for whatever reason took the time to help me. And I'm so grateful for those opportunities. So I go back to my time at DeVry. And when I was there, they said, hey, we're gonna have a veterans club on base. And we had that, and then they married it up to the Student Veterans of America. So they were trying to do the DeVry Military Resource Club and kind of marrying those up. And I learned a lot about when I'm working with veterans. I was on active duty, so when I came into my place of work and I said something, then it was done. Nobody questioned, right? And walking into a room of a mixture of active duty and people who had been in the military, and now they're going to class. Some of them wanted to be part of the military. Some of them, there's a reason why I left, and they didn't really want to have that military kind of structure in there. So I learned about volunteers and working with them, a lot of hard knocks with that. And then the dean of academics, his name was Jim Rodish, and he pulled me aside and he said, hey, Mark, you're an insurance guy. We're starting this business alliance group with the regional chamber. And it's like a LATIP, it's like a BNI, and these networking events that as a business owner or as an employee, you can join. And it's industry specific. So there's really one seat for every industry. So you're going to have a banker, you're going to have a mortgage officer, you're going to have a real estate agent, you're going to have an insurance person. And then out from there, some of the other, your printer services, your graphic designers, your photographers. So they start building these networking groups and build your referral base. So I joined the regional chamber. And then through that, I went to New York Life and we collaborated. There was a few of our agents and we collectively bumped up our membership. And then I got a seat at the Defense Veteran Military Affairs Committee. So now I'm rubbing elbows with commanding officers, with generals, with admirals, with congressional offices, talking about the military and the big picture, why we have the Coast Guard and what their position is. We have somebody from Miramar come by and tell us what their role and their whole big picture and understand this whole collective military operations, and then how the business world enters into that, where supply chain with the products and services to the military that they purchase. or they hire people to provide services for the military here in San Diego. So learning that piece. And then where I'm here in North County in Fallbrook, I joined the local chamber. And I worked my way up there to where I was serving on their board of directors. And it's just literally opportunities that came by and through these channels where people were, again, took the time to help me to understand that. And then now I have, so, you know, I'm the regional affiliate leader for the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors here in San Diego. And that opportunity came being introduced to some people and not being afraid to speak up. So when they heard my passion and they heard my story that I just shared with you, and I told our congressional leaders that when they want to try to make policy, some of the unintended consequences of the legislation, or this was some of the good parts of their legislation, and I had a story to match up with that. So it really made them understand if it was a good or a bad thing for their constituents, who just happen to be my fellow agents or my clients. So you can just walk along and say that there were so many people at key times, and I was able to listen and I was being introduced to them. And I don't know, that's really one of the key fundamentals that I think if I could pass that on to listeners or active duty or families or anything, to just be open to some of those opportunities that will come in, and someday you'll be able to go back and trace it back to say, I met this person here who introduced me and got me on my path. If you recall, in the Reboot one-day workshop, Maurice said something that was really, it opened up my eyes. The vast majority, I think it's 80% of the transitioning veterans do something in another industry other than what they were trained on. I thought that was fascinating. You know,
Right.
that it wasn't just, I mean, we all heard it, that you take your uniform off, you put some civilian clothes on, you're doing the same job. But there's so many other opportunities that utilize the skills that you have, and just be open to that. I think that would be a really, if they could take that away from something, that's something that I would like to communicate to them. I think that would be it, just to be open to opportunities, because you'll never understand the power of just an impression that you make, a meeting that you have. I mean, those are how these success stories are built, off of a lunch meeting, off of a phone call, off of an email, a LinkedIn request, you know, to be open to that.
So to summarize it for the junior sailors and Marines and airmen and anyone else that is listening, what you're talking about is building up your network, even though it might be that you are not sure or aware that you're doing that at the time. Just being yourself and making that connection and not wasting that opportunity. You never know when someone else that you met a month ago, a year ago, is like, hey, so by the way, I really like, Mark, you have an awesome personality, and this opportunity just showed up today in my inbox. How would you like to be part of it? Since I know you are part of insurance, or since you had whatever experience in the military, and they connected the dots for you, they actually fought for you at that time, some without you even knowing that they were fighting for you. And those are your best advocates, right? And we go back to the whole, is not what you know necessarily, is who you know that opens up the doors for you to be able to go through, and then what you know actually pushes past that door. But if you never even connect to those people because you're so afraid of, or you don't want to make that connection or that friendship, then you just waste massive opportunities in your life.
When you both were there on the midway, because you both are either at your transition or going to be in your transition, you heard the Pinnacle Society come by. That was so powerful, And for those of people who never heard of it, like none of us ever really understood what the Pinnacle Society was. It was the top performing nationwide headhunters, recruiters, hiring agents that are paid to find the right people for the right employer, and they make those introductions, make those connections all the time. That the knowledge that they passed on to you, it was just that. Who knows? Because the impression that you made with those people, they remember how you were dressed, how you looked, how you spoke, what you talked about your career and some of the skills that you're looking for and some of the different opportunities that you may be interested in. And who knows what's going to come out of those. There were 20 or so of the recruiters. We had about 10 or 12 hiring agencies here in San Diego, and we had about 15 or so military members or veterans that were in that room. So who knows what's gonna transpire out of those meetings. So I think that when we, as imparting or employing these younger sailors, that they're the ones that are really the most affected by, here's a nice little handshake, here's your DD-214, and then we'll send you on your merry little way. You really don't have a lot of benefits unless you qualify for some medical through the VA. You've got your GI Bill, but other than that, no help with housing, no help with where you're going to relocate and some of the opportunities that are out there. I think that they really need to or should take the opportunity to put themselves out there as well, to see what they may come across.
I've seen a lot of these veterans that did only about 4 years, 8 years, and they get out and they're incredibly successful. And there's a lot of success stories out there, and a lot of them find resources that help them out.
Mhm.
Not everybody is fortunate enough to know about these resources, and that's why we started doing this podcast and YouTube channel, because there's just so many things and you don't know what you don't know. And one of the things that you mentioned, one of the resources that you used was Reboot.
Right.
How do you think Reboot can really help somebody? And you got out in 2015. So
Right.
how is it that Reboot is so important for today's veteran or future veterans to utilize?
What I'm as we've talked about that the play Last Out, look that up. The Last Out play, they were talking about that in the Q&A. And after we left Afghanistan and we lost 13 of our service members, the VA crisis line calls have gone up exponentially in that period of time compared to the time that we've been in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think that is really something that we need to get out in front of. And by getting out in front of that is the fact that we joked around that I got my first name back, because I don't go by Petty Officer Sigmon. I don't go by, that I was a 3M coordinator or a suicide prevention coordinator or a safety officer. I don't go by that anymore. I go by Mark. And I think the Reboot piece, because it took so long, we had grown men. My class was all, they've done mixed classes, they've done all women's classes and all men's classes. And there were grown men in there, brought down to their knees in tears, because we got down to the root of who we are: emotional, spiritual, your value system, whether it was in line with what the military had or not, your interests, your passion, your fun, everybody in there had a different idea about what they would do for recreation. But to break it down to that level, and then understand the power of the mind, and really, fear has two meanings: forget everything and run, or false evidence appearing real. And I think that when you understand that we're all going to struggle, we're all going to need something, and it may not be right away. It may not be that, you know, you may have things in a row and there might be a great opportunity that comes along, but somewhere you might need some help. And all of those resources that are out there, I think if it were really the mindset that Yogi was talking about earlier, was to say that it really changes the way that you look at the world, the way that you look at yourself. And then when you can start with a little bit of humility, come into some new situations and take advantage of those opportunities, I think that that's the biggest thing that Reboot taught me, was that we don't know what we don't know, and we can talk ourselves out of something because we're scared, or we're uncertain, or we don't think we're good enough, or we don't think that we're qualified. How many times when those top headhunters or those recruiters were telling us, don't worry about what's on the job application or the job description. If it means 3 years or 5 years or something, if you can, because of what you've done in the military, you can overcome that. That was one of the first times I've ever heard that, because you know that we've got so much to offer. Tell me one of the situations when we go back to your career where you were absolutely put into somewhere where you literally did that gut check moment and you didn't know whether you had what it took to be successful in that position. If it was becoming an LPO, LCPO, acting as a division officer, whatever the case may be, because of the situation and what you had, and you didn't know whether you had the oomph to make it through there. You overcame that. And you were put in an unfamiliar situation. And if you could communicate what you did and the lessons that you learned, the resources that you didn't have, and you had to go out there and find on your own. If you tell that to anybody looking for somebody to improve their company, because why do they have a job? They have a job because there's a need that they have to do a task or a set of tasks. But you can do that above and beyond within the scope of that, of all of those duties. You have it. We just have to learn how to communicate that to them so that you can have a better interview, have a chance of making that the difference between a callback for another interview or a job offer and your resume being taken out of the pile. I don't know. Were you guys inspired by all of those conversations with those people that were there? I just wish, because I said, man, I in the back, I just sat there and I watched everybody, the excitement level and listening to all of those people. There was so many opportunities just given to you. I mean, every single person, they didn't care if you were Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, they could care less. What did you do while you're in the military? And we will find an industry that can place you in that job. Every one of them knew that they could find you. They had a job opening for every one of them sitting in that room.
So for our listeners who don't know, the Pinnacle Society, Mark brought it up a little bit, but are the top recruiters and the top 80 recruiters in the United States, period. So it really takes someone either dying or retiring for you to take that spot, right? And the minimum requirements for you to even be considered for a position of that is for you to have, within the last 5 years, three successful years of you bringing more than $500,000 as revenue from placements on your candidates. And that's a bare minimum.
But
a lot of them have a lot more than that. And they are absolute experts in their industries. Every single one of them owns their own company. They are successful by their own right before recruiting and through their recruiting stages, right? Some of them are focused solely on the aviation side of the house. Some of them are solely focused on the semiconductor side of the house. Some of them are solely focused on the construction, real estate, whatever it is that you want to do, you break it down, and out of those 80 recruiters, they have the network, the connection, and the willingness to connect you to someone that will hire you, right? One of the biggest problems that we face transitioning out is not that we cannot, is not that we don't have the knowledge to get a job, is not that we are not qualified to get a job, is not that we're are in the wrong state or the wrong city, right? The problem is that we don't know the people to connect us to that fountain of water that is jobs. Everywhere in the United States right now that you search, they are completely undermanned for thousands of skills. So you not getting a job is not that you're not able to get a job, is that you're looking with the wrong lens, you're talking to the wrong people, you're reaching out to the wrong fountain to drink water from to connect you there, right? And that's where the Pinnacle Society is. And I know I went on a tangent and I apologize. I didn't know anything about the Pinnacle Society until after the event. And then I was completely mind blown to know and to have talked to those people and that were willing to give us, it was what, about 8 hours of their time, maybe even more. And so I'm in contact with every single one of them that was there, right? Every single one of them has pledged to come on the show and just drop their knowledge and their wisdom because they want to reach people. They want to help people. Their financial status is already taken care of. They don't care about that. I mean, obviously, everybody needs to make money to eat, right? But they've already reached that goal. And that's why they call themselves the Pinnacle Society, right? They're at the tip of the spear for what someone in the military would translate it to, right? They are successful. They are there. They just want to give and reach out to everyone to help everyone else be successful.
It was so incredibly inspiring because to see what the Onward Ops and the San Diego Veterans Coalition are starting to put together with these different arms that they have, and for these other people to just say, how can we be part of it? They walked down on their own time from the hotel that they were staying on onto the Midway and gave everybody their time and their expertise and said, we'll make a connection and we'll still continue to follow up. You would pay a ridiculous amount of money to be in front of those folks, and they did
And
it for nothing.
this is the part that breaks my heart. There were scheduled to be over 80 people, 80 service members. And we won't throw out a number, but the people that were there, we got super hooked up for life, right?
Right.
The rest of the people that missed out, they missed out and they will miss out for the rest of their lives. Unfortunately, that's their loss. You know what I mean? And just like you said, I mean, this is something that it is whatever mentorship, knowledge, guidance that you ever could think of is, just a lost opportunity in life.
I think that one of the major differences about and as I've seen the growth of the E3, of the my TT 365, my transition timeline 365 app that happens 2 years before you get out, and then as you get about 6 months, start switching over to that Onward Ops piece. And part of my business model, if you will, would be that instead of putting it on the membership, putting it on the service member, you should go to all these places. This is, the information is out there. You just need to go look for it. I think the focus now has shifted so that all of these agencies have said, hey, we know what's not working. let's try something a little different. And now that it's focused on each and every single person with a custom, I don't want to say a customized approach, but it really is. That somebody's going to take the time to really talk to you about, I as a certified sponsor now with the Onward Ops, I got my first transitioning member, and then through the MyTT 365 app, there was a retiring naval senior enlisted leader, in the Chiefs mess, that was telling me about what he'd done. Phenomenal. He'd taken a lot of individual steps, but then when I seriously asked him the question, what keeps you up at night? What are you concerned about? It was real. It was very emotional and very heartfelt. He says, I just feel like I'm dropping the ball because I'm running around doing so much, getting my family relocated, get everything all set up, the new job, where he's going to be. It's overwhelming. And even he said, if it wasn't for somebody like you reaching out to me and having this conversation, I'd be a lot more stressed. And so I think that is really what the nonprofit world is doing. Over there at the San Diego Veterans Coalition, they said that Abraham Lincoln, there was this retired brigadier general that said, Abraham Lincoln said it was our duty to take care of our veterans. For a long time, we thought it was the government's job to do that. And now what we're realizing is the community's job to be able to fill in those gaps. Because the difference between having one conversation, a kind gesture, showing somebody that they care, whatever, I mean, it really falls into that you're going to take that person, that family, and address their needs, because there's people that are just chomping at the bit to help. You have a need, you have a situation where you want to ask for help, it'll be there tenfold. The foundations that are out there, the nonprofit world that's out there, some of the government agencies that are out there, and then I really want to emphasize this point too, was that for anybody who wants to start their own business, because we start talking about the employment, but what about that entrepreneurship spirit? And there's channels on there. So I took my agency and I registered it with the SAM database, which you get a number, so that any time you get awarded a contract, it's going to be given to that number. My email box, my LinkedIn timeline, everything was flooded, much like somebody who says, hey, I'm looking for work. But there were so many people that said, I'm going to help you get certified to be recognized as a service-connected, disabled, veteran-owned small business, a veteran-owned small business, or anything that you want to do, because then that gives you a leg up. Because by law, there's certain percentage of all of these contracts that have to be awarded to people like us, right? So if you give me $3,000 or $4,000, I'm going to help you with that certification. But if you go to the San Diego Business Development Council, excuse me, or you go to SCORE, you go to the Small Business Administration, you don't have to pay a dime. And you get all of these things that are free. So I think that whether it's that certification, whether it's an apprenticeship, whether it's anything, some of these people, the vetting process that is being done so that they introduce you to people who are actually after your own best interest cannot be overstated as well. Because everybody's going to be looking at you saying, oh yeah, there's a need. I can write you a resume for a fee. There's a Google Veterans Writing Workshop that does it they'll charge you a fee, but then there's a Google Veterans Resume Writing Workshop that's nothing. And you have people that, because they're writing the algorithms that get you in front of the employers, so they know how to write a resume. I mean, why would you want to pay all of these extra money to try to get something that shouldn't cost you anything? So that's why working with some of these organizations that are out there, I hope you can trust them because they've been there, done that, and they've weeded out all the people that were unethical.
Yeah, that's why I was so thankful for um, finding SDVC and all the resources that are like inside of this organization. And it kind of led to more, and it led to more. And then, what was really cool is while we were getting out, it's not just me getting out, but it's also Yogi, and it's also the other people that you don't see in here that we've all shared our experiences, and us grouping together, like that Planet of the Apes, where Caesar breaks the single stick and he quotes some philosopher, you know, alone we are weak, and he cracks the stick, and then together, he's talking to the orangutan, and the orangutan's like, yeah, you're right, but together we're strong. So that's where these organizations, the community, where what you were saying, what President Lincoln said, and then the general stated, it's not the government's job to ensure that we're getting taken care of. It's actually the community that should be welcoming us, and the government should be incentivizing that. And, it's just crazy, there's all these resources out there, and we would have never known about the Pinnacle Society, and we would have never been able to interact with these industry leaders if it wasn't for the community led by Reboot, led by the SDVC, um, organizing all this stuff. It's truly been amazing, man. And um, we we're like so blessed to be where we're at today. But the problem is a lot of people don't get to this until they're getting, like, they're almost completely out.
Right.
And that's a huge problem. And what we want to try to do is raise awareness to people that are in. Hey, start 24 months. Start looking at your process 24 months before you get out. Download that MyTT 365 app, because that is such a valuable resource. Now, from what I understand, what was your experience with the app?
Well, I see it differently than what the service members see. I see it after everybody can fits that. And I think that the biggest lesson that I've learned is that the confidentiality is there. That only the people that you're going to have, the people that are running these organizations, but once you're assigned to a sponsor, once you're assigned to a case manager in the MyTT 365 app, that information is between you and that service member. Now, I might hand them off again, and that might be to somebody else, but that person who's actually working actively on that case, because we're in San Diego, or you're going to be coming to San Diego or whatever, however we get matched. I mean, I was talking to people in Maryland, and because of the fact that underneath that my 365 app, just because of the fact that we need to get more people to help in that aspect of it and build the members there. But I think that understanding that the better you can paint your own picture, it allows me, as I'm seeing that, to help and start grabbing some resources and start mapping that out. On the onward ops piece, which is ETS sponsorship.org, I believe, or the org or com, I forget. And then then that aspect has actually been taken over by Google, and Google is building that platform for veterans because they see this. We've had top level, sergeant majors, master chiefs of the Navy, commandants, SecDef, SecNav, that have seen this and seen the work that's being put into this, and they want to be a part of it because they see how this is going to bridge the gap. And I think that if you're going to kind of summarize all that up, just kind of what this whole theme has been today is just showing up. Don't be part of the people that were part of that workshop, not the people who didn't attend. Things happen in life, and I get that. It's not a big deal. We're not beating anybody over the head. But if there's an opportunity when somebody's putting out a veterans coalition, they're putting on a veterans workshop, they're putting on a veteran hiring panel, go. And you'll never know what kind of information you had. And I guess the summary on is this. Because I was on that Defense Veteran and Military Affairs Committee, there was a company that was looking for their group benefits. Because of the work that I did in that panel that was unrelated to insurance, it was helping veterans. We have a bill in the state. I want to say it's in the assembly this year, to help us with our retirement. We're one of the only states that are left that doesn't help our state the state doesn't tax our retirement from the military. So we've been trying to work on that. And it looks like there's some movement on there in a very positive way with that, but it kind of started as a grassroots level here, and working with that and seeing what the struggles were and trying to get people to listen to the stories about why it's a good idea for the state not to make money off of our military pension, but later on, all of the different aspects of what we're going to provide to there, because we're still going to be part of the community. We're still going to be here because we have the veteran population here in California and all of the bases. But it was because of that work that I got a phone call, and he flat out said, I'm tired of trying to do this on my own. I can run my company and I can do what it is that my company is supposed to do, but I need somebody on my team that's going to take care of this, and I don't have to worry about it. And there was a time when things didn't go well. I get a text late at night after hours, and he says, I'm so glad you're on my team, because I didn't expect this to be smooth sailing. But when the bumps are in the road, I know that you're going to fight for us, and you're going to fight for us hard. Those conversations would have never happened if I would have never listened back in 1996 to Jim Rodish telling me that I need part of the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce and join a business alliance group. I can't emphasize that enough. There are so many people out here in this community, whether it's in your community, in my community, wherever, they want to help the veterans. They just don't know how. So these organizations that all three of us have been part of are starting to bridge that gap in a very positive way. And so I think that the onus is now starting to be removed, and you can offload that to whatever it is. Help me find a good college that'll give me a good program, not let me use up all my GI Bill. Help me get into a resume writer. Help me practice my job interview skills. Help me get some housing. Help me get, who do you know about the schools in a situation? Because all of these resources that are out there have this available to them. And if they don't, they know where to go. And let them do that work for you. And then you concentrate on keeping your mindset, keeping the way, and taking care of your own mental health, taking care of your own family, and offload that out through these networks that are started to be created for you. So I think if we wanted to wrap it up, that's all that I would say is just, if you don't know how to get a hold of these folks, reach out to me, marcsigmon.com. My phone number's on the website. You can book an appointment with me. And if you book an appointment with me and you put in the subject line, I saw you on this cast, or I'm a veteran, or whatever the case may be, it's against the law for me to charge any fee for service anyway. No, I don't charge anything to just sit down and talk, but I will take time out of my day to help anyone and give them, and if there's an introduction that I can make for whatever, I'd be willing to do that, or offload it and help somebody in that area, whatever. So that's really the key, is just, if there's somebody that reaches out, here's my name, here's my number, and you can reach out to me at any time, you've already earned that because of what you've done in the service to our country. That they're there, they wouldn't offer it. They're not there looking in your back pocket. They're not there knowing that you get paid on the 1st and the 15th, or understanding that they truly are after your best interest, and take advantage of those opportunities. So
Well, brother, any other saved rounds or alibis for anyone in here?
I think
All
we
right, cool.
covered a lot. I don't know. Did we? I think we solved a lot of problems in the world between the three of us, don't you?
Yeah, man, I think it's time to run off into the sunset. But before we go, we got the final round of questions. All
Okay,
right,
go ahead.
brother. During your journey of life, what podcasts or books have really helped you out?
There's a couple things that really helped me out. The book is the oh god, it was right on the tip of my tongue. It's the 4 ways of helping, or the 4 gifts. Read that one. Um, anything that you can do. There's another one called Mindset, is a great book that can help you out. And then one of my favorite people to listen to, that I listen to almost every day, is Matthew McConaughey. I love just pulling up something on YouTube and listening to what he says. That speech about life isn't hard. It's 5 minutes, and it's great while you're getting ready every morning. It fires you up. So I think that time, taking that time to reset every morning, and it's some quiet time where get the family members out of there, and just while you're sitting there taking a shower or whatever, listen to that, and over and over and over. Because when you feed the good things into your mind, instead of don't open up Facebook, don't open up the news channel, don't look at that, don't look at your email before you in the first thing, and listen to some good, get some good energy, get some good info coming in there. And if you're a man of, if you're a person of faith like I am, it doesn't hurt to have a little conversation with the man upstairs once in a while.
Are you talking about the 4 agreements? Was that the book that you
Four
were talking
agreements.
about?
That's it. Yeah, the 4 agreements. Thank you. Yes.
And then
great.
also Matthew McConaughey, I just butchered his name. He also has the book, The Green Lights.
Okay. I'll add
Yeah,
that one to my collection, man. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, the Green Lights is really good, and he just actually had a whole entire seminar, online seminar. Now he's really doing a lot of motivational speaking, and he also has this thing called the road trip. I'm not a I, I'm not one of his people that get paid to advertise his stuff, but Matthew McConaughey has a lot of great stuff out there, and he's working with some of the top people on um, motivating people. So yeah, that dude is a rock star, definitely, definitely a rock star.
So Mark, I got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
What advice would you give yourself if you could go back before you joined the Navy? What advice would you give yourself then?
You have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. I think when we were young and we're cocky, we're stupid. There were so many different things that I did early on in my career. Some decisions that I made, the people that I wanted to hang out with. I didn't realize that you're in a whole different environment, and it's easy to get caught up in some people that are not making the best decisions. Fortunately, I never gotten in that much trouble, but I think that if I were to find people who genuinely have my well-being involved, and not just it's great to go have a beer with, I think if I would have learned that a lot sooner in life, that it's the people who, somebody said, if you show me the people that you hang around, I'm going to tell you a lot about you. I'm going to learn a lot about you. And I think that if I would have listened to that a little bit more, and listened to what people were trying to tell me early on in my career, instead of speaking first, that I might have made a little farther. I don't know. But yeah, I think that would be the advice that I would give myself.
Second question is, what advice, going back, always hindsight's always 2020, right? What advice would you give yourself before your transition out?
I think that if there was something any advice that I would have given myself, take time every morning for yourself to read. Self-improvement, that mental health piece cannot be overstated. Ask for help. There's nothing wrong with that. If you ever find yourself in a situation it's not something. And I think that just if we had the opportunity to really address some of those issues and give them the respect that we need, whether it's, I don't want to say if it's PTSD or if it's some type of anxiety or anything that you have. I think a real wholehearted gut check conversation about where you're at without the fear of being kicked out or being in there, but for your own sanity, to be able to really pay that with the respect. I didn't talk about that I was with the Seabees, and so we were there on the ground in Iraq, and we were there on the ground in Kuwait when we invaded in 03 and 04. And an ET belongs in the rear with the gear and the AC. I'm not really designed to be there, but I enjoyed my time there and had some amazing experiences. But I was in a position where I came back with 10 fingers and 10 toes. And when you see my shadow box, my old neighbor was a Marine officer, and he asked me, he said, what's the thing that you're the most proud of? I said, they don't make a medal for that. He goes, what do you mean? Everybody that left on every deployment came home alive. And a lot of those were in combat zones. And a lot of them were we were in Kuwait and Iraq. And I never had to put a flag over one of my shipmates or fellow Marines or anything covers on a casket. So if you would have told me what I was suffering with, then it was survivor's guilt. But fast forward, when I met survivors of the Las Vegas shooting, and one of those ladies said that there were 58 people that died that day, I'm no better than them. I don't deserve to live. I don't deserve to survive that. And because I was able to be on a heart to heart and a human existence with that young lady, she's still alive today. And I just, if I would have really given the respect to some of the effects that it had on me, and given that the respect and the dignity that it deserves, instead of worried about the label, I think I would have been able to have better relationships. I would have been able to have, not react so emotionally a lot of the times during my transition. So if that helps anybody, I think that would be what I would ask, to give myself that advice.
Man, I really thank you for sharing that story, man. Because, man, I knew some people that were in the Las Vegas shooting too, and it was crazy because a brother of mine, we were at work, and then all of a sudden we just get a phone call. And it was like, bro, my wife is there. Yeah, man, it was insane.
Even with the training that I had,
Yeah,
I'm not sure what I would have done in that.
Yeah.
Would have been there, and to put those folks through that. But I think that's really, no matter what you went through, no matter what you've done, I truly believe, again, I'm a man of faith. I believe in the Bible, it says iron sharpens iron. And I think that we develop these skills so that somewhere along the line, there's going to be somebody that, when we went through a divorce that completely, or we had, God forbid, any type of trauma to us, because of the fact that we've overcome that, there's an opportunity when we bond with somebody. And recently I was at a lunch with some people that it was just by happenstance that everybody was there. But we just kind of started talking, and the conversation went around about how much, how we've all gone through things in our life. And because we've done that, we still have the passion to help other people. And if we had 10 people come and we helped one, that's really all that anybody was after. And I think that taking the time to understand that, give yourself that dignity, give yourself that mirror, look yourself in the mirror. And if you need conversation, there's people out there that will have that with you. And it will help you out so many times. But if whatever you've gone through in your life, whatever experience that you had, somewhere along the line, you're going to meet somebody that's going to, that you went through that for a reason. I don't wish anybody to go through a bunch of crap, but those opportunities when you can actually help somebody through the experiences that you had, I hope that would make it a little easier, a little bit, the medicine that you have to swallow a little bit more tolerable. So I think that's really one of the keys. And on these deep conversations, when we kind of get in here, we had no idea that we were going to talk about this. But if your listeners, somebody pops in and sees this on a YouTube video or anything, and this comes around, and hearing these words and hearing some of this advice or what somebody had to go through, if that helps them, that's a bonus, right?
Yeah, man. I absolutely agree, brother. And
Thank
as
you guys so much for having me on here tonight. I really appreciate it.
yeah, we got one more, man. You're
Go
almost
ahead.
off the hook completely. So when you were transitioning out of the military, what was it that helped you get into the right mindset to transition?
We kind of talked about that, but it was Reboot. And it was being around other people that were going through the same thing that I went through. Because the people out of that class, I learned as much from them as what I learned about myself. There's people who have gone through better, worse, whatever, and life's not a competition. And I'm building my company brick by brick, and I don't have to look over at somebody else and see what they've done or if I'm farther ahead or there. I think that it's really truly at your own pace. Whether you should know better or all of those negative thoughts that you have as you're doing that. I think that was really the thing, is that just to wipe all of that out. To this day, I mean, to be honest with you, in the last couple of years, there's been some trauma, and it was kind of more than what I could take. Even after I transitioned, I became my own business, and especially in about the last year or so on that. And I've recently, gone back and revisited some of the things, had some deep conversations and everything. And then now I just got certified, a service dog, and she goes with me everywhere. I would have never thought that going through all of this, that I would have been one of the people that's going to get a service dog to help me keep myself kind of focused and everything. But here I am. To be vulnerable, to be honest, to be genuine, and to be humble. I think if I could pass that on and say, hey, that's the mindset. And that's the beauty of it, is that everything has changed. And there's a lot of things that have changed from 2016, 2015 to 2023. But my direction is a whole lot more important than my position. I know where I'm headed. So that's that mindset. And it didn't come easy. It wasn't that, one day I just woke up and it was there. I constantly have to work on it. And like I said, even this morning, I didn't listen to Matthew McConaughey. I listen to Steve Harvey once in a while. He's got a beautiful, after they taped it at Family Feud, it's a speech called Jump. And it's got a biblical verse in there. I just want to let you know that. So if somebody said, oh my gosh, you're trying to throw that on it. No, if that's what you take out of that speech, then I think you're missing the point. But when he was talking about that, when he talked about his experience about getting hired on the Apollo, and you hear some of those stories, those are some of the things that I play and feed myself some constant good things in the morning. Because if I want some negative things, all I got to do is turn on the news. All I have to do is open up Facebook, and I have to open up some emails, and then I'm coming back in there in a completely different mindset in that from at 8:01 or 7:50 or whatever time I decide to start work that day, than if I were to go in there and feed myself some good nutritious for my mind coming in here. I'm a completely different person if I have that great, have that good time with myself in the morning. So I think if that would be the one that I've learned and still learning in the last 8 years.
So I want to bring up a guy, one of my mentors. His name is Ray Ogoye. Absolutely love that guy. He was my QAS as I was a QAR in BFA 195. He mentioned to me one time, he's like, hey man, not every place in life will provide you the guidance, the mentorship that you need from there, especially in the Navy, right? You think that you should have it there within the command. He said sometimes you just have to go outside of this and search for it yourself. And just like you said, you have to feed yourself every day before something else fills in that gap, right? It's just like eating. You can either choose to eat good food or you can choose to eat bad food. What you feed yourself and what you feed your brain is what's gonna come out of it, right? So thank you, Mark. We want to
Yogi, just one quick
go
thing.
ahead. Go ahead.
Since you said that on mentorship, find somebody outside of your circle. Like, I mean, if Yogi, you want to be a stand-up comedian, and I know you're going to be talking to like Jeff Dunham and Brad Williams and all them, so that way you can, and I wish you well in that next venture in your life. But find somebody outside of that arena and have them as a soundboard. And you may not find them right away, but when you find those people that really truly take care of that, my best friend, we were in the same Humvee together. He retired as a senior chief, and we talk, if not every day, every third day, constantly. He calls me up, and if we don't talk that day, he knows I'm in a meeting, and he's in Mississippi. And hold on to those folks, and do your part, and then find somebody that you can mentor, find somebody that you can help, that you can be that, because it was almost that when we get that satisfaction of sharing what we have to somebody else, there's a reason for you to wake up every morning out of bed. And then when there's those bad days and you have to go behind the curtain and kind of get your mindset right with that person, and they may or not be in your industry, and may not be at your workplace, they may not even be somebody who came across, but take advantage of those folks and keep them close to you as well.
Inspiring. Thank you, Mark. We truly appreciate you coming to the show. We truly appreciate your knowledge. We truly appreciate everything that you're doing for our community here in San Diego, here in the area, and also for branching out and becoming a ETS sponsor.
Yeah.
You're going to be reaching across the world, and I already know that, and changing people's lives. So truly appreciate everything that you do, and we'll keep in touch, bro.
I mean, thanks again, you guys. Thanks, Chris. Thanks,
Yeah.
Yogi.
Hey, Mark. Yeah, thank you, brother. And to everybody that's listening to this, we covered a lot of different touch points. So take a listen to it. You guys got Mark's contact information. Let's make sure that we re-engage on some of these. Get in contact with Mark. Let us know what we're doing. We're on Facebook. We have our Facebook page all set up. Take a look at it. Go to our LinkedIn website. Go to the Mil2Vet.com. It'll take you straight to all the content and all the points of contacts. If you want to find Mark, his LinkedIn is going to be in the LinkedIn contacts as well. So just take a look at all these resources that have been talked about. A lot of stuff put out there. But remember this, everybody, it's not all rainbows and unicorns, and it's your transition. So take charge of it. Return to Roots out.
I saw a pasta. Let's go eat.
All right, adios. Okay.
Bye, Felicia.